Hi, I'm Lucas from Quant Monitor. In this chapter, we'll go back to the birth of modern systematic trading, when trading stopped being mainly a craft and started becoming an engineering discipline. The key shift was this: performance wasn't viewed as insight, it was viewed as an outcome of structure. For most of market history, trading was treated like an art. Knowledge was transferred through observation, experience, and personal interpretation. Even when rules existed, they were often implicit, not formalized, not testable, not auditable. Then came a decisive break, the early systematic era shaped by Omega Research, TradeStation, and the modular system paradigm. Trading was no longer framed as intuition refined through experience alone. It became a design problem. Markets were treated as systems, trading logic became architecture, and results became something you could analyze as structure. This didn't make markets easier, it made thinking about them more honest. Before systematic platforms, discretionary traders faced a hard limit. No matter how skilled a trader was, they struggled with consistency across environments, objective self-evaluation, separating signal from noise, and emotional interference under drawdown. Discretion often works in narrow conditions, but markets are not narrow. That's why early system designers recognized something fundamental. Human judgment does not scale. Rules do. Systematic trading wasn't born from the desire to remove humans from trading. It was born from the need to preserve decision quality under stress, repetition, and uncertainty. This is where the engineering mindset begins. You stop asking, how good is my intuition? And you start asking, how stable is my process? One of the most misunderstood lessons from the early TradeStation era is this: they were never primarily about finding better signals. They were about defining processes. Instead of asking, when should I buy? Designers asked, under what conditions does this idea make sense? When should the system stand aside? What invalidates the premise? That reframing is subtle but foundational. A signal is an event. A process is a system of constraints. And this leads directly to modular thinking. Early methodologies separated the system into modules: market identification, deciding when the system is allowed to act; setup logic, identifying structural opportunity; entry logic, defining execution mechanics; risk definition and controlling downside before profit; exit logic, defining termination rules. Why does this matter? Because modularity makes questions testable. You can ask, does this entry work across different exits? Does this risk model survive volatility shifts? Does this filter improve stability or just delay trades? Those questions are almost impossible to answer if the system is a single monolithic block. Modularity is freedom. Replace one component without rewriting the whole system. A core theme in early system design is the emphasis on market states. Markets were not treated as a constant stream of opportunity. They were segmented into regimes: trending versus ranging, volatile versus compressed, participatory versus thin, and systems were expected to be active only when their assumptions were valid. This concept predates many modern regime switching models, yet it aligns closely with them. It also explains why many robust systems appear inactive for long periods. Inactivity is not a flaw, it's a feature. A well-designed system doesn't trade because time passes. It trades because conditions are met. No time bias, only condition bias. Another quiet but critical shift happened in how indicators were used. Indicators were no longer interpreted as buy signals and sell signals. Instead, they became state descriptors. A moving average didn't mean buy, it meant price is positioned relative to recent consensus. An oscillator didn't mean overbought, it meant recent movement has accelerated. This reframing removes false precision. It also improves robustness, because you stop treating the market like it's issuing commands and you start treating indicators as context. In strong system design, indicators don't tell the system what to do. They define when the system is allowed to do it. Early TradeStation literature consistently emphasized robustness over performance. Robust systems were not defined by peak returns. They were defined by stability across parameter ranges, persistence across markets, and graceful degradation under stress. Optimization was treated as a microscope, not a goal. Designers didn't hunt for the single best number. They searched for flat regions, areas where performance remains acceptable across many parameter values, because a sharp optimum often means curve fitting. It looks great in the past and breaks quickly when conditions shift. Robustness is not exciting, it's survivable. Here's a practical lesson from modular design. Modules must be separated for testing, but joined for stability. A common failure is building isolated components that look good independently, a setup that works, an entry that works, an exit that works. But when combined, they clash. A stable system is not a pile of trades, it's an integrated process. That's why good architecture is about tightening the hinges, the handoffs between modules. The setup must naturally lead into the entry. The entry must be compatible with the exit. Risk must reflect both structure and execution. This is where system design becomes real engineering. You're not optimizing parts, you're validating interactions. Contrary to popular belief, mechanical systems were never meant to eliminate psychology. They were meant to contain it. By externalizing decision-making, systems reduce impulse trades, regret-driven exits, and overreaction to short-term outcomes. But system trading introduces new psychological challenges: patience, trust, and the ability to follow a process through drawdowns. And this connects to another major principle. Drawdowns are not just failures, they are diagnostics. In the Omega era mindset, developers used drawdowns to ask, which assumptions were violated? Has market structure changed? Is the risk model still appropriate? Systems weren't discarded because they lost money, they were discarded because they lost structural relevance. Now zoom out even further. Portfolio thinking existed even before sophisticated portfolio tools. Early designers understood single systems are fragile, uncorrelated logic improves survival, and diversity of structure matters more than diversity of instruments. So why did many early systems fail? Common failure modes included over-optimization, hidden regime dependence, inadequate risk control, and misinterpretation of historical performance. These failures weren't evidence against system trading, they were evidence for better design discipline. And the final link to today: modern platforms differ technologically but not philosophically. The same principles endure: modular architecture, explicit assumptions, robustness testing, and market state awareness. This era still matters because without this foundation, modern traders repeat the same mistakes, just with faster tools. Conclusion: a trading system is not a prediction engine. It is an interpretation framework. Markets change, systems must adapt, but the principles of robust design remain remarkably stable.